They are forgotten no more. After 65 years, the remains of some U.S. soldiers killed or declared missing during the 1950-53 Korean War are finally back home on American soil. Vice President Mike Pence joined families and friends in welcoming the fallen patriots on Wednesday at a ceremony at Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam in Honolulu. Video posted online by the White House showed U.S. service members carrying 55 American-flag-draped caskets into a hangar. Pence noted how the identities won't be known for quite some time, but that won't stop the nation from honoring them. Today, they are known by God, Pence said, but soon we will know their names and we will tell their stories of courage. He noted how the families of the fallen had spent decades waiting for this day to come. They were soldiers, yes, but they were also husbands, fathers, brothers and neighbors, long gone but never lost to the memory of their loved ones, the vice president said. For generations, their families had only a black and white photograph to cling to, a faded letter or the precious memory of an embrace on the day they left. In closing, Pence described how President Trump's renewed relations with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had paved the way for the soldiers' return. Brothers and sisters in arms. We hope that in this ceremony, in this promise kept, you see once more the deep gratitude that every American feels for your service, and that you lead with the absolute assurance that the Korean War is forgotten no more, Pence said. We don't know who will come off these planes today, but we do know they are heroes all. The vice president flew to Hawaii on Wednesday with two family members of Korean War MIAs, Diana Brown Sanfilippo, 69, and Rick Downs, 68. Sanfilippo told reporters she has been desperate for closure. All this stuff goes through my mind even as a child, she said, speaking to KOLO-TV in Nevada. Was my dad tortured? Was he still alive? Did he live through the plane crash? All I have is questions, and no one wants to answer or even talk about him. It could take days or even years before investigators can identify the remains, but Sanfilippo is keeping the faith. To have him home would be closure for me, she said, but I know that may never happen. The repatriation of the remains is the first tangible sign of progress in the wake of the historic Singapore summit in June, during which North Korea promised to denuclearize the peninsula. In the deal with Trump, Kim vowed to return the remains of American soldiers who never made it out. The war between North and South Korea effectively ceased with an armistice that ended fighting between North Korean and Chinese forces and South Korean and U.S.-led forces under the United Nations command. More than 7,700 U.S. troops remain unaccounted for from the war, including some 5,300 whose remains are still believed to be in North Korea. The 65th anniversary of the armistice was last Friday, the same day small boxes of remains were picked up in Wonsan, North Korea, and flown to the Osan Air Base in South Korea. The boxes were initially draped in blue and white UN flags, under which the US and 16 other nations fought in the war. They were then transferred to full-size caskets that were eventually draped with the stars and stripes. On Wednesday, ahead of the remains' arrival in Hawaii, hundreds of U.S. and South Korean troops held a solemn repatriation ceremony at Osan that lasted 2 hours and included a rifle salute and the playing of the national anthems of the two nations. For the warrior, this is a cherished duty, a commitment made to one another before going into battle and passed on from one generation of warriors to the next, said Gen. Vincent Brooks, top commander of U.S. and UN forces in South Korea. See also officials say North Korea returning remains shows improved relations. A U.S. military plane made a rare flight into North. And for all in attendance, this is a solemn reminder that our work is not complete until all have been accounted for, no matter how long it takes to do so. 4 F-16s flew in formation over the ceremony before the caskets were transported by a van and loaded onto 2 C-17 military cargo planes by the UN Command Color Guard, according to ABC News. The last one was put on a plane as bagpipers played Amazing Grace. During their stay in South Korea, the remains were subjected to a 2-day forensic review, which determined that they're most likely American. There is no reason to doubt that they do relate to Korean War losses, John Bird, Director of Analysis for the U.S. Defense POWMIA Accounting Agency, told reporters at Osan. The remains are consistent with remains that we have recovered in North Korea through our own recovery efforts in the past. He said the North Koreans gave enough information about where each set of remains was found that U.S. officials were able to match them to specific battles fought between 1950 and 1951. Other items were also returned, including military hardware, uniforms, helmets, water bottles, boots, and one serviceman's dog tag. The family of that serviceman had been notified, Bird said, but he cautioned that the tag is not necessarily associated with the remains in the boxes. The bones and fragments will undergo further forensic testing in Hawaii at the Defense POWMIA Accounting Agency's lab. Experts said it could take days or even years to positively identify the decades-old remains. MIA families have provided DNA samples to the lab in hopes of finding a match. See also North Korea only returned one dog tag to identify war remains. North Korea handed over just one dog tag and no. North Korea has in the past handed over remains to the U.S. Between 1990 and 1994, it handed over 208 caskets that turned out to contain the remains of more than 208 individuals, although forensic experts have been able to establish only 181 identities. A series of U.S.-North Korean recovery efforts, termed Joint Field Activities, between 1996 and 2005 turned up 229 sets of remains, of which 153 have been identified, according to the Pentagon. The searches were halted in 2005 amid concerns over the safety of American personnel as Pyongyang ramped up its nuclear program. Last month, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington and Pyongyang had agreed to restart field operations in North Korea to search for the missing. The Pentagon said it was absolutely considering the possibility of sending personnel to the country for that purpose. More than 33,000 died in battle during the Korean War, one of them being Sanfilippo's father, First Lieutenant Frank Salazar, who was deployed with the Nevada National Guard in March 1951. The remains that were returned on Wednesday will be examined by scientists and historical experts of Defense POWMIA Accounting Agency Laboratory on Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam before being laid to rest in American soil. Some will be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Pence said, some in national cemeteries across the land. With wires.